Mr. Speaker, I'd like to engage in a colloquy. Mr. Speaker, I yield the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Gingrey, 40 seconds for a colloquy.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 40 seconds.
Mr. Chairman, the purpose of this colloquy is to clarify the intent of Section 1051 of the conference report, Interstate Water Agreements and Contract. First, can you please confirm that this section does not alter any existing rights or obligations under current law? My understanding is this section acknowledges the difficulty that interstate water disputes present. Unfortunately, we have a long-standing dispute in our region that is centered on the operation of two federal reservoirs located in Georgia, Altoona Lake and Lake Lanier. Alabama and Florida have claimed for years that the Army was not authorized to provide water to Georgia from those two reservoirs. Having won the court case, Georgia has asked the Army to make some decisions decades overdue. And I want to make it clear that the congressional intent of Section 1051 will not be interpreted as sending a message to the Army or to any reviewing court about how they should respond to a request from the state of Georgia.
I would like to engage in a colloquy, but first I will yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Westmoreland, for a colloquy.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 30 seconds.
I thank the chairman for yielding. The differing House and Senate language in Section 1051 should not be interpreted by the Army or any court as indicating that Georgia's request should be denied or delayed until states reach an agreement. While the conference report specifically references the ACF and the ACT basins, the House-passed language does not. Certainly other regions of the country with water concerns should pay close attention to what has happened with this section. What is your position regarding working out these disputes in future WRRDA legislation?
I now yield 20 seconds to the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Woodall, for a colloquy.
Thank you for yielding, and I appreciate the colloquy. As I understand Section 1051, the Secretary may continue to be responsive to emerging industrial and municipal water supply needs through reallocation of storage consistent with existing laws. And in that regard, an open and transparent rulemaking by the Army with substantive input from those affected seems to represent the best process to support that outcome. Is that also the Chairman's understanding?
I engage in a colloquy, but I first must recognize Mr. Kingston for 15 seconds for a colloquy.
I would like to echo my colleagues' comments regarding the ACT and the ACF river basin language. This language does not change current law or interpretation of current law and should not be reviewed by the courts or the Corps as changing any current obligations. We encourage the states to work amongst themselves to solve water use issues in this region, and I would be remiss if I did not mention the Savannah River Expansion Project with its $174 million net economic impact to this nation. And I hope that the PPA is signed soon.
I thank all my colleagues. At this point, I'll respond, and I yield myself such time as I may consume. I thank the gentleman from Georgia for raising these issues. The intent of this section is to encourage states to resolve interstate water disputes through interstate water compacts. Section 1051 in no way alters any existing rights or obligations under law. Further, Section 1051 places no limits on the Corps of Engineers' existing statutory authority to manage water projects under its control. This section is in no way intended to express a view on any pending request or to prohibit or interfere with the Corps of Engineers' ongoing efforts to update its water control plans and manuals for the ACF and the ACT basins. Regarding future WRRDA legislation, interstate water disputes are most properly addressed through interstate water agreements or compacts that take into consideration the concerns of all affected states. I do not believe that WRRDA legislation is the appropriate vehicle for these issues to be adjudicated. With that, I thank the gentleman for engaging in the colloquy, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.